that they're perfectly balanced for wine, and the wine guys are taking them. They do harvest quite well with the harvester, but the little green stems are stuck on them, so they're not really good for commercial use. But if you're just juicing them and making wine out of them, they're okay. So I'm not sorry that I did it. And also, it stretches my harvest out, so I've got 3 weeks of harvest that I can harvest. Indigo gems get ready first, the tundra, and then these northern jewels get ready about the same time as the tundra, and then the borealis gets ready afterwards. So we've got each row put, so that way you've got like 3 rows. So you're coming out with your machine or whatever you're doing, and you've got lots of turnaround room. You don't have to stop and back up. So you just turn around and go down the next row. So that was why I did that. It's also good, I think, diversity is good. Every variety has different strengths and weaknesses. You're going to lose some crop every year. Something's going to go wrong with one variety, so it's good to have a few. Right now I'm telling people Indigo Gem, 991, which is the Indigo treat, and then a pollinator. I haven't tried the Aurora enough yet to see what was going on, and we were already fully established before the honeybee came out, so we were using what we were using. That's my daughter Naomi, and she's just picking out the amphibians and various other things that end up surprised in the back of your machine. It's fairly gentle because a frog comes right through it, just somewhat dazed and confused. The lady to the left didn't really like the frogs, so he could even hear over the noise in the machine. The frog would go flying, or maybe birds and stuff like that. You actually have to, I'll explain later about the Canada Gap thing. But these are the Indigo gems, the 915s. They were coming off quite well. This year, 2014, we were able to harvest about 2 pounds off each plant. Now I know we planted them in 2008, but then we transplanted, and then everything got drowned. And transplanting them sets them back a year. Like, they really don't. They're not happy the first year after they're transplanted. I think you're all right if you pot them, because then you've got your root mass and you're putting it down there. But when you're ripping them up and putting them back down into the ground again, you are going to lose some production. So that's why I don't recommend that anymore. Get your plugs, put them right down, and you leave them where they're at, and you're going to go. You'll be a lot further ahead. This side hill, actually, you can't see it there all that well. Gets quite steep. It was running away on me, all this rain we were getting. I was ready to plant grass 8 times before I actually got to plant it, because every time I get it ready, 10 inches of rain, 12 inches of rain. Back, get it all worked up, ready to put the grass down again. 12 inches of rain. But so what I did, I mixed it with a gray field pea. A lot of the organic guys are using that in their rotations now. Guys that are growing organic hemp and that, they grow it up. It stands this high, chokes out the weeds, and then they roll it out. But I just kind of planted it as a cover crop to get the grass established, because my whole side hill just kept running away on me. I brought a couple of semi-loads of dirt in. I got a little dog that I'm really not supposed to have in the orchard, according to Canada Gap. Shh! Don't tell anybody I said that. Yeah, so we had to fill in this stuff. So I had to get something down there really quick to stop that whole thing from the erosion from happening. So it took well. Now it's probably taken a little too well. And I use a broadcaster, and of course this thing about throwing grass seeds in around you. So it wasn't the greatest idea, because we didn't have the cardboard shell around it, so we are fighting with grass right around the plants. But they are established enough now. I think they're doing all right. But we're never going to get the production. Also, grass is really going to it's going to rob if we ever do get. Saskatchewan is never going to be temperate. We know that. We've been living there all our lives. It's either going to be drought or rain. I guess we figured that out. But what I've done now is, in the rest of the field, I've planted a low-growing Dutch white clover. So I took a Gandhi applicator, just with a, that they use for sprinkling chemical and stuff on things, and I planted clover alongside all the plants, so that I've got a line of clover. Hopefully we'll get some nitrogen. But I need the other thing I need with the kind of heavy clay that we've got, you can't move in that field at all unless you've got something to drive on. So straight clover, it's kind of slippery, maybe not the greatest thing in the world to use there. So the grass is pretty important, or weeds as the neighbors call it. When we harvest, we've discovered that it's a really tender crop. Saskatchewan roads are, well, let's be polite here, horrible. You can't transport, if you're any more than two inches thick with your plants and you try to transport them to a facility, someplace to work with them, by the time you get them anywhere, they're actually jam already. So I bought a couple of reefers and we set those up in the field and start freezing within 12 minutes of picking. Once they're kind of stiffened up that way, then you can transport them. Or we usually wait till we've got a reefer full, a 53-foot reefer full, and then we'll haul it off. Now we get into predators for Haskap. This is my favorite predator. My granddaughter Eliana, she just turned 3 here a little while ago. But kids really love Haskap. They will sit in there and they will eat Haskap until they're blue in the face. Now, here's my least favorite predator. And I had a young fella. He's a welder, and he wants to have the biggest Haskap in the world. So he's bound and determined to make a bigger one than I've got. So he came and helped for a while just to see what it's like working on a Haskap orchard. And he says, "What about the cedar waxwings?" He says, "Are they a problem?" He says, "Are they easy to scare away?" Not really, I said. So here's one sitting there, and I've got my camera out, and I'm standing a ways away. And I just kept walking closer to the cedar waxwing, and closer to the cedar waxwing, and closer to the cedar waxwing, and closer to the cedar waxwing. And I missed the last shot because I bumped him on the beak with my lens of my camera before it flew. And then I turned back to the guy and I said, "No, they're not very easy to scare." Anyway. Last year, the PFRA old machine, they had a vacuum cleaner system set up, and we thought it might work well for harvesting Haskap, from the smaller bushes and that. Looked like a good idea at the time, and it was nice to find somebody that had a machine, and part of their mandate was to let us use it. So you have a vacuum cleaner on one end and a separator, and it looked like a good idea at the time. So we tried it out. You see, you have to have really ribbed sides on it because it's such a strong suction. Bit of a gong show, bit of a disaster. So we really, but it was one of those things you got to try. You got to try everything, and you want to try before you buy. So went there with that. I think the next one is another shot of what we ended up. And if you're making soup.
Oh, it's the...
So it makes a jam right off the bat there, so you don't have to save that process.
I think it would work excellent.
Noah's the eternal optimist.
Yeah, they're pretty red. When you see them under the bush,
They're not
that red.
Yeah.
Anyway, we took it back to them and said thanks for the trial, and I guess we won't buy one of those. So we're still looking for a solution for small bushes that's going to work. Something that you can maybe haul behind on a quad. We're kind of working on some prototypes. Craig Larson, the guy that does the Haskap Canada blog, he's working with an ag engineer, and we'll have something worked out here shortly. Now, the guy that bought Marty's place out, this is the harvester that they're using. You can see there, he's in Outlook, and they have the circular pivots. So he planted all these rows in a nice angle like that. This one, the teeth come up and down like that. I don't think, no, this one might be the one that says, yeah. Now when he planted, he planted, I think, bluebell, witch of the hide, and he's got tundra in between, and the tundra never worked out for him at all in there. And he covers with using John Deere baler twine, and doesn't really keep the cedar waxwings out. I went out there and helped him a couple of times to lay out his mashing that, because the waxwings, they hang out in the sour cherries, and then they just move over here. They completely strip the crop. I don't have to worry about that too much. I planted about 1,000 to 1,500 seedlings. And seedlings, you never know if they're going to be good, bad, indifferent, ugly, or even produce fruit. Some of them don't even produce fruit. They all grow like a darn, but not necessarily effective. But I plant them right alongside my hedgerows and stuff, so it gives the cedar waxwing something to do before they move out of the big field. They're a boreal bird. They feel really open out in a big field. And I got a big enough field that I'm not really worried about it. I was at first. I mean, I didn't say this, but some cedar waxwings did meet the final solution. But there's no way you're gonna. As soon as the Saskatoons get ready or anything else gets ready, then they're tired of one berry and they take off for another. So I'm losing about 30 to 40% of my yield on the stuff that's closest to the. That was one of the advantages of having my rows 20 feet apart, is that the cedar waxwings, they just don't like to get out into that kind of a deal. There is some work coming on right now. An outfit has developed drones that kind of look like hawks, and also they make the noise of hawks. Now, they'll be quite effective. I had my older grandkids coming around. We had a kite set up, you know, those nice flapping winged kites that look like a hawk, and I got them to run up and down the rows screaming their heads off and flapping these kites. So, great job description. They just love, this is the best job in the world. Hey, a few bucks. Child labor. Now, if you kind of take a look there, you can see it's got the fish plates up here, and it's the same problem with all of the harvesters that are made for raspberries and blueberries, high bush blueberries, and Saskatoons, because they all produce their main throw of berries up top, and of course the Haskap does it down the bottom. So you really miss a lot of harvest there. You can sort of see there too that, you know, it's leaving a lot of berries behind there. And you can kind of see the fish plates in there and how high it is. Like this machine here, it's about 14, 15 inches off the ground that it's harvesting. These plants are, I think he must have planted in 2008 or was it 2007 too? No, Marty.
Oh.
Something like that, yeah. He's organic there too, so. And here's a young fellow that's taken over. He had the processing plant, and they were pitting pitting the sour cherries, and he had the plant set up. He bought Marty out, but now he's decided he's going to have these beautiful spots right on the South Saskatchewan River, just down from the dam. It's all organic. And so he's turned the whole thing into a winery. So now he's going to have a dude ranch and winery. And it's close enough to Saskatoon that people will do that. We're too far away to be dude ranchers, but it's probably good. I'm going to be sorry because now I got to find somebody else to process that has a CFIA registered plant. But there'll be more about that later. Now, I am going to give you guys a demonstration of a planting that we did in last fall. Maybe if it works. Okay. Now, I'll try to get out of the way a little bit here so that. It would say something like no signal, wouldn't it? Oh, darn. Here we go. This is an example of farmer art. When you have a GPS controlled machine, you can make these really pretty designs in your field. And I told him he couldn't mess that up. I figured it's modern art, but anyway. Now where are we here? So, when I did my orchard, it took me 3 years, and he figured he'd get his whole orchard planted in 2 weeks. We just about did it, but we kind of ran out of juice and jam. a little too tired. He'd already dug a dugout in a low spot of his field, so he would have water for the irrigation. So I set up my tripod right on the hill up from the Biffy, and I took pictures every day when we were doing something. So it's kind of a way of how we now plant. So I took the GPS controlled tractor and I rode it a little bit down so we could fluff the ground up. He didn't have as heavy a dirt as mine. It's a sandy loam, kind of boreal till. And it's a really pretty spot. Yeah, I should keep talking here. He told me I'd made it too long. But I just kind of wanted to get this idea. And this is, I think we were there for about 10 days. And in the 10 days, his orchard went from absolutely nothing to becoming well, there will be 40,000 trees in it. We got 21,000 planted, and we all kind of ran out of it. First off, he was mad because some of the plants weren't ready. And I says, by the time we're done here, you're going to be more than happy, more than ready to go here. But anyway, there's kind of my little Kubota tractor with the GPS unit coming up and down. You just set it up in the field. We're not using our plastic mulch applicator. He had rented one from a friend of his there, and this is his Coyote tractor. And I painted the lines out in the field for him, and he followed them. Works actually better than the one that we had, because it pulls it tighter. And then we left him a row down the middle. It's always nice to be able to get down the middle of your orchard with a row, a place to turn around and that sort of thing. And then of course here's the next day, we're coming along and it's starting to look a little bit more interesting. And it was a beautiful fall, like probably the nicest fall we've had in a really long time. He had mink and moose and all kinds of things and deer that, though they won't touch the Haskap, they seem to like, sort of like, you get that electronics and those little things that pop when you get it out, and kids and your grandkids and everybody can't stop popping them. Well, the deer feel that way when they're walking on plastic mulch. Pop! Lovely! So of course everywhere they do that, and then you're going to have weeds coming up through. Now, that was a nice plain triangular point. that was all these Haskap plants and a schoolmate of mine. And then I again hired the newer generation of Smoky Lake tree planters who thought they could plant 2,000 trees a piece a day. I said, you're not going to do that when we're doing this. So they're coming along, and when the tractor pans over, there's Rachel. You'll see her up in the corner over there. And she stumped the whole thing out and made the holes. And now here's our, we got the 2-inch pressure pump. We've got these steel ones set up with a stopcock on it. And then where all the holes she'd made, we're squirting the hole down into the ground. Now that way you're getting about a gallon and a half of water into the ground. And when they come along behind with the trees, then you know darn well that they're getting really a good watering in. And they took really well. Of course we won't know till the spring. There was a lot of rocks in this field too, so when I was rototilling it was just but so you end up with quite a crew for doing it. And this really is the most efficient way we found of doing it. I mean, planting 1,200 trees and then killing them all because you can't get water to them quick enough didn't work, so we had to devise another method if you're going to plant a big orchard. So it's kind of an experiment. We're sort of, Bob does all this wonderful stuff in the lab, and then he says, hey, you guys out there, you're our experiment in the field now.
Well, they actually won't fund us to do simple, practical things. It has to be jazzy and sexy, right? Even though you basically need this stuff a lot.
That is a pretty impressive kind of a setup.
So
And
were they
got-
taking dirt that was dry to fill in that hole when they put the plant, or were they just firming it up?
You're just firming it up, because sometimes if there's a whole pile of rocks down there, then it got really sloppy in there, so then they add a little bit of. They started out, we don't need gloves or nothing, and by the time we were done, we had to buy the rubber gloves because pushing your hand into Saskatchewan alkali dirt around the rocks and things. And away you go. There's Rachel again, and she's the same age, well, the same age as my sister, a couple years younger than me. That woman never stopped, I'll tell you. I wish I had 5 Rachels working on my orchard. This is a young fellow. I went to school with his dad and his mom, and we graduated in 1969. And they saw me on the Nature of Things when they did that show, the Fruit Hunters Part 1, and decided, well, if he's doing it, he was a fairly sharp guy in school, we'll do it too. So phoned me up, and about a year from the time he first phoned me, he had 2,000 trees in the ground. We'll get the rest in the spring. You guys everybody's starting to look pretty dragged out here because, and we're all glad that, okay, there isn't another 20,000 plants ready. I gotta go home. And we had all kinds of different things, like our plants last year, the ones that we were propagating, since it was the longest, coldest winter Saskatchewan had had in 114 years, everything was that far behind, so a lot of our trees, our little cuttings didn't really do well, so we got some tiny ones, we had some big, huge ones, and but they got about 2 weeks of half-decent weather after that before winter set in, so I'm quite sure they'll do well. And he's going to do complete white clover around, and he's going to broadcast it. I said, I'm not sure if you want to do that. Do you think the clover is, like, it's fairly shallow rooted, that low-growing white clover? He says he wants to spread it right into the trees.
Marty said he was also, when he did white clover, he mowed it all the time so the plant wouldn't get too vigorous underneath either. So that was another element of it.
See, the stuff that we put in there, it came out a little better in the fall, and we still had bees on it because the bees just love that white clover, that low-growing white clover, so they were still using that. It was the last thing that was flowering the end of September. So.